Hey all, today's guest is Stephen Matrick. Stephen is the co-founder of the new Colossus Festival, which is coming up in New York City from March 3rd to March 8th. The new Colossus Festival is a great place to discover up-and-coming bands. It's kind of a showcase festival where bands from all over the world come and play multiple shows over multiple days in the Lower East Side. There's also some really cool panels and conversations going on. If I was going, I would definitely go to those. Urge you to check that out. Stephen is also the manager of A Place to Bury Strangers, so we get into that a little bit, and he is the co-founder of the Dedstrange record label, so he does it all. I'm sure you're going to love this conversation I had with him. As always, if you want to support, you can do so at tapeclub.substack.com. All right, enjoy my conversation with Stephen. All right, Stephen, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for doing this. I know things are very busy with the lead up to New Colossus right now.
Yes, we just had one of our favorite bands from Indonesia, Elephant Kind, just canceled. They had 4 shows, so I've just been reprogramming those 4 shows all morning.
That is the kind of stuff I love to hear about, and we're going to get into it. I want to start at the beginning. So New Colossus is heading into, I think, its 7th year. Let's go back to the first year. I mentioned to you before we started recording, I have a long history with Treefort Music Fest, and their starting kind of story, it had to do with South by, right? South by happened the week before it, and all the artists going back to the Northwest needed a place to play in between South by and home, because that's a long-ass drive. That was the spark for their festival. What was the spark for New Colossus? I noticed it is the week before South by. Is it at all related to the fall off of South by, or was it just its own thing?
Yes. No, absolutely. There was some serendipity going on. I was the booker, the talent buyer pianos for 9 years, and I have a friend named Mike Bell, who I used to do events for the Dutch consulate and other, country export offices with. And he came to me with this idea of kind of consolidating what was going on the week before South by Southwest. And that was one band would play here and one band would play there, and all the shows would be empty because people don't absolutely feel like going out the week before South by because they're going to South by. And then I was also on a panel, I think it was at Mondo that year, with all my fellow talent buyers. And we were like, damn, we really miss CMJ. This was actually 2018. So CMJ had only been gone for 2 years at that point. It ended in 2016. We were like, we really miss CMJ, which was very much sort of the South by Southwest of New York. So I just spoke to all of them about trying to unite to do something. And then Mike came to pianos with his partner, Lawrence, sat down with me, and I was like, I'm in, I love this. And then Lawrence pulled out of working with Mike, and he was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And I was like, okay, I can probably be your partner. Let's give it a shot. So then we were going through, we wanted to do a sampler in 2018 of just one show the week before South by Southwest. We did it at pianos, and I went through all of the CMJ partners we had, and I was like, who is my favorite one? And it was Leo from K9 Records, who always threw the best parties every year at CMJ. And he's also a big A Place to Bury Strangers fan who I manage. And it was so we brought on Leo. We had the first party in 2018, and it went very well. So we agreed to just give it a shot in 2019. I think one of the really important things was that we all came from different worlds. And, Leo had been running K9 for 20 years. They signed Grizzly Bear and Chairlift. And Mike was more in the export world, which is very necessary to bring bands from other countries. And I have been managing A Place to Bury Strangers for 18 years and have been a talent buyer on the Lower East Side since 2007, I think, I want to say. So yeah, we all work really well together. We're kind of like, we all have that sort of little kid energy. I keep making the joke that we're becoming old little kids, which is kind of apt. And so yeah, we had a great 2019. In 2020, the pandemic hit the first day of the festival, and we had all the bands in town already. So we had to just rely on what was going on in the city and which venues were still open and which bands were still around. And we reprogrammed the festival every day. We made it through the whole 5 days. And then 2021, we did an online version, and we've been back since 2022. This is our 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is our 5th version of the festival since recovering from the pandemic.
Wow, incredible. That's such a good point that y'all filled the gap where CMJ kind of had to leave, I guess. I don't really know exactly what the story was with CMJ. I just imagine it maybe wasn't profitable and it just wasn't working, so they had to cut it
Well,
loose.
I think whoever was running CMJ back then tried to upscale it, and suddenly there were like huge shows at Webster Hall, and it started to fall apart on the lower end of things. And yeah, I think it just collapsed. I never really got a full story about it.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into a question I had here. It was sort of about the relationships you built up as a talent buyer. So being involved with places like Pianos, places like Berlin, I imagine you leaned on those relationships when you were first getting this thing going because you need the buy-in from the venues, right? Or are the venues clamoring to get involved in this?
Well, I actually have booked 3 of the 12 venues we use. I also was the booker at Berlin after the pandemic, and I booked a place called Lola that became Heaven Can Wait, and it's now it's escaped that country's Lucinda's. It's now Lucinda's. But so yeah, and it was always great to be a talent buyer at one of the venues, to kind of base operations out of there. I also had my ear to the ground for really great local bands that I would see, especially when I was at Berlin. And yeah, so it's very funny in all aspects of what I do now. Like I'm managing a band called Prewn, and there's a label bidding war about her. And anytime I meet a label person, I look them up in my Pianos email. 9 years is a long time. Everyone is in there. Everyone is in that email account. And I'll forward some email from 2011 to someone I did a conference call with, and they'll crack up laughing, like them asking for guest lists for some band that we totally forgot about that's no longer around. So yeah, I think that we work really well as a trio. I'm more in the sort of punk rock, A Place for Very Strangers, noise rock world, and Leo's more in the indie pop world and the shoegaze world especially. That's kind of his thing. And again, Mike just sort of oversees the festival with me, and it really helps our relationships with countries. We have mixers with Germany this year and with all the Nordic countries, and we have a relationship with the Czech Republic going on this year. We have a relationship with Sweden going on this year, and Spain, and a Latin Lens party that is, I believe, 5 or 6 countries from South America. That's when people ask how we want to expand the festival. That's how we want to expand the festival. We have about 60 shows at the festival, and we now have 31 partners. We had maybe 15 partners when we started, and we're just expanding that. We have a lot more labels this year, but it's very important for us to expand our relationships with other countries to bring more and more bands to New York City for the first time. It's kind of the goal of the whole thing. And you see these bands arrive the first week of March, and they're like, oh my God, I am from Australia, and here I am standing in New York City because of you. Thank you so much. And it makes the insane amount of work that the 3 of us do all worth it for those particular moments.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can imagine what an experience like that is like. It's funny that you bring up the email thing, because I was going to say, Leo from K9, his name I've heard for the last decade. I make music on the side, and I remember I emailed him way back in the day, like 2015 or something, because when you're first starting out, you want to be on a label. You don't really know what it means, why you need it, but you want it. So I remember emailing a ton of places, and he was the only person who replied. And he said, hey, it's a pass. And I was like, thank you for replying. That's so sick. So I've always had an appreciation for that guy. So very cool that y'all work together.
I always giggle about Leo because you always get a straight answer. I call him a record store kid, because if you ask a record store kid if they like Fleetwood Mac Rumors, they're going to either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They don't even have to think about it. And Leo has just this very fast verdict on the things he'll listen to and the things he likes to book. And I work pretty fast too. So that's one way in which we work really well together.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I think that's the best way, right? It's just being direct and actually saying what you're thinking.
I mean, sometimes I'd rather not get a pass depending on the situation. I would have preferred someone ignore me than to write some, reason why they're passing on, whether it be an artist or the festival itself. I'm like, I didn't really need to hear that. But I think that if you write to 15 labels and you get 3 negative responses, you're actually going to appreciate those 3 negative responses, because you feel like you're throwing, a rock in the forest and nobody can hear you a lot of the time when you're pitching your music to labels.
Yeah, and that was back then when the blogosphere was like really popping. Now the noise, the amount of noise, the amount of people making stuff is just insane. So yeah, you're barely gonna hear any responses. I want to talk about the logistics of making this thing go. So 6 days in the Lower East Side, nearly 200 bands from all over the world. It sounds like a logistics circus. What goes into making this run smoothly and function?
Funnily enough, and I only recently started admitting this, but I worked on Woodstock 99 when I got out of college. And so this is a massive enterprise, specifically because all the bands have like 2 or 3 or 4 shows, and it's 12 venues. And these venues are used to having 1 or 2 bands a night. And like Pianos on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're throwing 16 bands at them. So the key to that is I try to take all the advancing on myself. We can't have these sound guys being emailed by 16 bands a day, with 16 times 3 bands a weekend. So I've been doing this for Woodstock 99 was a long time ago. I've been doing this for a very long time. The key, I think, is to find venue partners that appreciate what you're doing. We've had some venue partners that only care about bar numbers, and remember that a large part of our audience is the bands themselves, right? If you have 200 bands with 4 people in each band, plus their entourages, that's 1,000 people coming to the Lower East Side. Do those people flying here from, say, England, have a lot of money in their pocket to buy the $15 drinks? Because the drink prices on the Lower East Side are pretty expensive these days. They don't. So we have to have venue partners that really want to take part in welcoming these 200 bands to the Lower East Side and appreciate the quality of the music. That's a super important part of this. And I think all the venue partners we have now are in that boat.
Is it more expensive to throw something on the lower, like a festival like this, on the Lower East Side rather than doing it somewhere in Brooklyn? I think like your mind immediately says, of course it's more expensive to do it in Manhattan than in Brooklyn. But then you look at rent prices and it's like, I don't know. I mean, first of all, Williamsburg's a shell of what it was culturally. And Bushwick maybe doesn't have the proximity. The Lower East Side maybe seems like it's still the best place for something like this.
Yeah, I mean, we've had moments when I'm struggling with a partner, not appreciating what we're doing. And I'm like, maybe we should just move this to Brooklyn, because I think places like Our Wicked Lady, which of course is now gone, but the Broadway and, Purgatory and Alphaville, those are our buddies. Those places are definitely going to appreciate this concept. And yet, Mike really wanted, the new Colossus Festival is a poem on the Statue of Liberty, welcoming people to Manhattan. And Mike really has always insisted that we keep things on the Lower East Side, because the Lower East Side is kind of one of the birthplaces of music in the history of the world. And the music scene moved in the 90s. It was in the East Village, and then it moved to the Lower East Side, and then it moved to Williamsburg, and then it moved to Bushwick and Bed-Stuy, and now it's in Ridgewood. It's just moved further east, and we're like, okay, for one freaking week a year, let's bring it back here. And what it also does is the bands that play the festival, when they come back to New York, they're going to be a little more willing to play Manhattan than just some band who has an agent who's going to immediately reach out to Babies and then book them at Nightclub 101 if Babies is booked, and then go down the tiers from there. And I think these venues really appreciate the quality of music we're bringing to them. So, and again, that we've been doing this forever now. I guess it's 8 years. And it was only one moment where I was like, guys, this venue is being really horrible to me. Like, maybe we should move this to Brooklyn. It's not going to happen to us there. These Brooklyn venues are going to be like over the moon. But again, I mean, Pianos has been insanely supportive. Nick from Baker Falls is our old friend from his cake shop days, insanely supportive. Arlene's has been great. We added a ping pong place called Sour Mouse last year. They've been really great. Berlin, Gabe from the band Gift books Berlin now, and I manage them, so that's very easy. Niagara, same kind of situation. We added the New Blue venues last year. Ilhan from New Blue seems really great too. And this year we added Kit Malone's venue, which is called Francis Kite Club, and it's right next door to New Blue Classic and Parkside Lounge. So we have a little pocket now on Houston and C, basically, of those three venues. And then right up the street from there is New Blue and Niagara. So we've kind of expanded eastward. Barry Electric closed, and that was our furthest west venue. So it kind of works out. And Parkside Lounge is a wonderful venue, such a great place to see shows. Not an enormous venue. It always feels packed, whether there's 10 or 70 people there. And Gavin from Parkside's amazing. And then the last venue, Silver Lining Lounge, we're doing one show there Thursday night. That's in the Moxie Hotel off Bowery, and we're kind of just dipping our foot in there this year.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like you guys are carving out like this nice pocket there where you're almost bringing it back, so to speak. It feels so weird to say like that Manhattan or the Lower East Side fell off ever, but it really did feel that way for a while. It felt like all the shit was happening in like Bushwick or Ridgewood or whatever. So,
well, I'll defend these venues a little bit. The rents in Manhattan are sky high, and the way in which that factors into the music scene in Manhattan is there's enormous pressure on you if you're a talent buyer in Manhattan to pack the venue every night and and check the bar numbers for how high they are. And I just wasn't able to really be part of that because I'm into music and not alcohol sales. Pianos has a wonderful nightlife that supports them on the weekends. So for what we do there is kind of a bonus to them. They pay their rent off their dance parties upstairs. Arlene's makes a lot of their money off their parties after the bands are over too. So those venues aren't as reliant upon bar sales as say a Berlin or a Bowery Electric or and so on. So that's the way in which Manhattan has a disadvantage. The rent, from what I know, on Bowery Electric is insane. Yeah,
I can't even imagine it. I used to run a video production company that had an office in like industrial Bushwick, and even that was like $3,500 a month. And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, what the hell? I can't imagine what a place like Bowery Electric would be. Let's kind of segue into the talent buying thing, because I did want to ask some questions about that. For the people who may not know, can you just break down in layman's terms what a talent buyer does? Okay,
well, I started very slowly booking this place called Monkey Town in Williamsburg that was around from like 2005 to 2008, I think, in old Williamsburg on like South 2nd and Berry. And it was a room where where the walls were all video screens. It was a square room. The band played in the middle, and it was just fantastic. 50 cap, and I booked Sif John Stevens there, and Shearwater and Bowerbirds, and a whole bunch of incredible shows there. And I always I wanted to do that sort of talent buying. And then I booked at Santos Party House for a little while, and then I toured with the Place of Very Strangers from 2007 to 2010. When I realized I hadn't bought socks in way too long, I was offered a job being a talent buyer at Pianos. The drummer of Place of Very Strangers worked there, so that these people are all my friends. And I actually wound up staying there for 9 years. The insane thing about that job at Pianos was we had bands every night in the showroom and upstairs, and we had 5 bands downstairs and 3 bands upstairs. So I was booking 8 bands a day, and I had to sort of book the DJs and just keep track of them, really. I mean, it was mostly regulars, but there were DJs upstairs and downstairs. There were probably 6 DJ shifts a day. So that's 14 bookings a day in one job. And I did have assistants that helped me with the upstairs. But basically, Pianos was, when it first opened, was a super hit place. And CMJ ending really kind of hurt the neighborhood and hurt that place, because we were guaranteed to have that week a year where like Grimes would play there or Beach Fossils would play there. When CMJ went away, it signified just one more move towards Brooklyn for all these venues. Baby's All Right was opened by Billy Jones and Zach Mexico. I actually replaced Zach at Pianos and worked with Billy there for 4 years. And they, very consciously wanted to stake out Williamsburg and open up what was just a cooler scene at that point in 2014.
So the day-to-day of talent buying, is it kind of, publicists hitting you up or managers or agents hitting you up, or is it you reaching out to people? Does that depend on the size of the venue? And how has that all changed since you started? I imagine it has it's quite a shift. It's very different now, I imagine, than it was, back then.
Yeah, I mean, a good talent buyer is booking most of the venue without using the submissions that come in. A talent buyer maybe that's been in their job too long is probably booking a little more from the submissions that come in. And it's a combo. And then there's agents that hit you up for your best shows, the shows that will sell out the room. And you recycle the bands that you really love, and that will really help the venue make money. They play a show, they kill it. You're like, can we book another one in 4 months? So it's a combination of all those things. At Berlin, when I left pianos, I was like, oh, thank goodness, I'm not booking 2 rooms, and I'm not booking DJs every day, and I'm working part-time, and I'm just going to concentrate on booking the best bands in the New York City music scene. So I went to Lydia from Gustav, who had won the award for playing the most shows the year before that. So this was 2022, I guess. And so, yeah, it must have been 2020 because 2021, no one played shows. Anyway, Lydia just, basically gave me a guide to the whole Brooklyn music scene. And because Lola, where I was booking, was off the L, I ran an experiment where I only booked bands that I reached out to, and it worked. It was amazing. It started to establish this incredible scene there. People started hanging out there regardless of who was playing. That's the ideal thing you want at a venue. But I only made it to the 3rd month, and I had 6 more months of shows already booked, but when the pandemic hit. And after the pandemic, they put me at Berlin because this booking company called Gig Finesse had taken over what was Lola, or what was then West Berlin, which was then Heaven Can Wait. And then at Berlin, I tried to do the same thing. It was great. The drinks at Berlin were a bit expensive. So the kids playing at Berlin would go across the street to the Double Down every night. And the bar numbers on these great sold-out shows I would book wouldn't be what the owners wanted. And that's kind of why I left there in May of 2023. So now I've just spent the past 2 years not working for anyone, concentrating on the festival, managing 3 bands, and running a record label.
So it sounds very similar to my industry, where it's like you could make the most killer piece of video, whatever. You can make like a killer short form piece, or like an amazing, mini doc or something, and you love it and that it's sick, but the metrics don't hit. And then the people who are your bosses, I guess, are like, oh, but it didn't meet our expectations because the number is not the same as we wanted. And you're like, but did you even watch the fucking film?
Right. Yeah.
So exactly. Here's a question that I just kind of came up with. This wasn't written, but I am curious. When you're working as a talent buyer for a place, right? Are you going to as many of the shows as you can to see what the vibe is like in the room, or are you is that maybe something that you do for the first couple months and then stop going to shows as much? How does that work?
That's a very good question that varies depending on how unhealthy you're being, right? So when I started at pianos, Zach said to me, hey, dude, I've been watching over you. You're doing a great job, but you're not at the shows every night. I'm like, every night? He's like, well, at least at the beginning. You just started there. So I'm like, okay. So I went to the shows every night. 2010, it was September of 2010 I started. And I quickly developed basically what was a drinking problem. So pretty quickly after that, and it was a very short period of time before I was like, I just can't do this. I mean, I was older too than both of those guys at that point. So I had a rule where I would only drink on Thursdays that lasted all the way through the last 7 years I was at pianos. And I would purposely book my favorite bands on Thursdays. And Thursday's a great night to go to shows because the Bridge and Tunnel people aren't overwhelming you by then. And you can, if you're exhausted on Friday, you can roll through it, to be honest. But then there's probably 3 or 4 shows a week that you want to see a band or 2 on at least. Berlin, I was there probably about 3 nights a week. And I live around the corner from both those places, which is a huge advantage, obviously. But there are a lot of venues where the talent buyer is never around. It's absolutely true, where you'll only see them on the shows that they book with agents.
And then, I kind of wonder how they determine success at that point. I guess it's sales. It's like bar sales.
Well, the Jesse Malin venues have this great thing where the manager has to write up everything, including how good the bands were. And the talent buyer sometimes gets access to that and can get reports on the bands. You get word of mouth. The more you're at your venue as a talent buyer, the better job you're going to do. That's just the truth.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last question before we get to the break. So the thing that I personally am most excited about for this edition of New Colossus is the conversations. I thought those looked so interesting. Real quick, just for the viewers, I'll let them know what y'all have. You have the NYC scene, the London scene, the Berlin scene. You have one about indie labels, and you have one that's about marketing and PR. That is something that if I was in New York those days, I would 100% attend. And if you're in a band or if you're in the music industry, go to those. That is probably the best thing you could do, in my opinion. But for you, what are you most excited about at this year's edition of New Colossus?
I'm most excited about bands and specific bands. And
I think we're probably going to get into a couple of them.
What the first song I sent you that we'll talk about later is by a band called The Heaven. Gabe, who books Alphaville, I said, hey, send me a couple bands for the festival. I don't book Berlin anymore. You do. And he sent me this band called The Heaven, and I put on this first song that they have listed on Spotify, and it blew me away. They sound like Primal Scream. Maybe everyone's going to start sounding like Primal Scream again. I have no idea. Then I spoke to the lead singer of Gift, and he was like, oh, I'm producing them. And I was like, that's amazing. So that might be the band I'm most excited about. That's why that's the first song on that list. But there's tons of them. There's this band, Alien Chicks from London, UVs from Brooklyn. I found UVs because they opened a Pons show, and Pons is like the new Gustav, where they play so many shows a year that they're an incredible resource for me. I have that's what I'm most excited about. There's two Dedstrange parties. There's our general label party Wednesday night at Berlin, and Sunset Images is on the label is playing. All the other bands are associated with the label in some way. And then there's a 2-story punk rock day party on Saturday Pianos where Jack from Pons got me going with this. He sends me bands every year. And then this year I hit up Big Fathead and Touchdown Jesus, who Jack sent me last year. And I said, let's get some Ohio in the house. And they sent me all these great bands from Ohio. The Matrick Ton. Actually, the Matrick Ton aren't from Ohio. Anyway, tons of great punk rock bands are coming from Chicago and Ohio. The Midwest is just crushing it right now with punk rock music. So I strongly encourage everyone to come. I'm about to announce that party tomorrow morning. We just got the flyer today. But that's what I'm most excited about. And last year, that party was just amazing. We staggered the time, so you're literally seeing 16 punk rock bands in a row.
That's amazing. I'm so pumped that you guys are building this thing, and it is so cool. If you're in New York and you are a fan of discovering new music and supporting DIY stuff, you cannot miss this. I think this is the thing to do. I might even pull up. I don't know. We'll see. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into your mixtape. All right, we're back with the mixtape. This one is, you kind of teased a little bit of it, but it's related to, bands that you're involved with, bands that are involved with New Colossus. Tell me a little bit more, I guess, in a nutshell, about how this is themed and, just generally what you were thinking when you built this.
I decided to choose a song from each year that was kind of the theme song of the year for me. And so we'll start with this year with The Heaven and their song Sight of You. It is so rare. Well, it's not that rare. Everyone asks their friends to send them what they've been listening to. But again, I book about half the lineup of the festival. And this year I wasn't at shows at Berlin every night because I don't book Berlin anymore. So I reached out to my replacement, Gabe. He sent me First Sex and a band called The Heaven. And I put on The Heaven and I was like, God, this song's incredible. Who is this band? That band has a really bright future. I'm happy to say they're playing twice. I might ask them to play a third time. I've been delicately restraining myself because we don't like to book locals a lot because it's the locals' job to really bring more people out to the shows. If you book a local 3 shows, maybe they don't draw that well at any of them. We're not really sure how that works. But yeah, so Sight of You by Heaven. Gabe from Gift sent it to me, and TJ from Gift is going to be producing some stuff for them.
They are amazing. Like when I listened to this one, I was like, oh, dude, this band is incredible. And look, I know that like judging bands by their fucking metrics is so whack, but when I saw that they only had like under 500 monthly listeners on Spotify, like that's like, what? Like this band is sick. Like
they're a new band, and that's our job, is to find new bands and give them exposure in New York City to the music industry and to the real music fans that come out and see the festival.
Yeah, it's sick. You guys are doing a great job, because I know I immediately added like all their songs to my liked songs, because I was like, I got to listen to this band. So I might even play them on my radio show this week. We'll see. Let's listen to a little bit of Sight of You by The Heaven. Next up, we have Almost Famous by Dictator. So tell me a little bit about this band.
It is not that rare. We have an application process, and I was going to say it's rare, but it's actually not that rare. Well, we'll get... Leo and I have a lot of fun together because we rarely disagree about music, which makes it a lot easier to book this festival. And a band called Dictator from Edinburgh applied, and we were just like, wow, this is going to crush at the festival. It is so much fun. It's dancey. And, you know, punk rock, shoegaze, indie pop, those aren't necessarily dancey genres of music. So whenever I hear something dancey that is aligned with those genres, I'm like really into it. Dictator kind of reminds me of Chubba Wumpa, like that kind of fun music. And the song was really my theme song of the festival last year. We book a lot of the bands that we know we can't miss on Sunday at Arlene's Grocery, so that if we're running around working and we're like, oh no, Dictator's playing. For instance, Dictator played opposite the Dedstrange party last year at Pianos, and I couldn't see it. So I didn't have to worry, because I'm going to see, I saw them on Sunday at Arlene's Grocery. And of course, being from Scotland, they were the sweetest people in the world, which is always a nice sort of cherry on top. And yeah, Almost Famous was kind of my theme song of the year. I would put it on my headphones as I walk to the festival every morning. It's that type of inspirational song.
It's also a good song. It's a good walking song. It's got that thump to it. It's a good walking song. So quick question about, they came from all the way in Scotland, right? How frequently what percentage, I guess, of the festival happens to be international bands? And is that percentage growing over time? Yes.
It's really great that we've kind of developed into our own thing, because as we said, we started the week before South by on purpose. This year we only have 20 bands playing both out of 190, and we couldn't be happier about that, because we really want to do our own thing. And the bands I recommended to South by, for some reason, they did not accept. I had a friend, James Miner, that was head of the South by South Music Festival, that left this past year, and I guess the people there now aren't really taking my recommendations. But anyway, I would say we would be happy if 100% of the festival was international, because that's what we're doing here. We love filling it in with locals, so there's always going to be 20 to 30 locals, but 20 to 30, so say 30 out of 190, what's that percentage?
30 out of 190.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like 15%, let's say, something like that.
Yeah,
maybe.
So it's 85% international.
Wow, mamma mia. I mean, it makes sense, because you talk like New Colossus, right? The poem on the Statue of Liberty. It really does. It makes sense. It's international bands. Here's New York. Here we're exposing you. And to add to that, Canada and the UK and Germany have funding bodies that help these bands get to New York. We've never even heard of anything like that in the US, because our government doesn't really fund art. Yeah, there you go. I couldn't have said it any better. And I think maybe the name of the band kind of is a good kind of allusion here. Let's listen to a little bit of Almost Famous by Dictator. Next up, we've got Perfect World by Prewn. Prewn, Prewn, Prewn. Tell me a bit about Perfect World, Prewn, how you know them, if you've seen them live. Okay, well, Prewn played the festival in 2024, and right after that,
Well, I actually became friends with Izzy from Prewn. She was dating the former drummer of Gift, Cooper, and we wound up seeing Roost World on the last night of the festival in 2024, and the three of us danced, and it was the best set of the festival as far as I was concerned. But I also had Prewn play the Dedstrange party during the day at Pianos that year, and all my friends chose the exact same moment to visit me at the festival, and they were all in the room, like Oliver from Place for Strangers, my best friend from kindergarten, my friends I worked on Woodstock 99 with, all these people. I was so overwhelmed by the moment, and I turn around and Prewn's playing, and everyone is just completely transfixed. Incredible set. Iceland Airwaves asked me to bring a band to Iceland with me when I was going the following November, and then they told me I only had one plane ticket. It was such an easy choice. I called Leo, and I was like, Prewn, right? And he was like, yeah, absolutely, because her songs are just so wonderful that she can play solo. So then we went to Iceland together, and we became really good friends. And then I brought her to Montreal with her full band for this thing called Tavern Tour that happened last weekend, but it was last February. And then I've been offered to put on stages in Berlin at 8mm Festival and in Rotterdam at Left of the Dial Festival. And I just started thinking of Izzy as someone I could put in my back pocket. And she came and played those solo. And at the same time, her new album, System, came out on October 3rd on Exploding in Sound Records, which is the label that broke Porches and a whole bunch of Water From Your Eyes and a whole bunch of really great bands. And it just went crazy. And we were together, and I was like, okay, you need a manager. That's my specialty. And we've been working together since October now and parsing through the insane amount of label interest in her. But I chose Perfect World because all these shows were solo, and it was so great to see her solo, actually, because you can hear every word she sings. And Perfect World, the chorus is basically, it's a perfect world, and I'm murdering my children, and I'm rubbing their blood all over me. It's like a really intense, ironic lyric. And it's just been such a ride. And I'm very happy that the festival has really helped her in her career. She's about to tour for the entire year, and I am really enjoying managing her. So yeah, and I just want to give honorary mention to Deleted Scenes by Ducks Limited, which was a little bit more of my theme song that year. Every morning walking to the festival, I put on Deleted Scenes by Ducks Limited.
Hey, shout out Ducks Limited. Quick question about, so Prewn played New Colossus and then kind of almost springboarded into other stuff from there, and it was like a great, growth moment. Is New Colossus the type of thing where you'll see bands coming back and playing it like multiple years, or is it sort of meant as a like, here's a springboard and we don't really expect you to come back and play again?
That's a difficult question because it's all over the place. We don't like to have repeats. And if a band doesn't make sense to repeat, we'd just say no most of the time. Prewn is not going to come back and play the New Colossus Festival because she's now past the point in her career where she needs to play a showcase festival. She has agents in both territories. She has labels interested in her. She already has a label. So she's going to be on tour with Whitney during the festival. I think she probably would have come because I booked some of her friends, booked a band called Gummy that she went to high school with. But there's all sorts of different scenarios. Like there's a great blog from the Netherlands called Opposite Marco, and Marco's throwing a party Friday night at Francis Kite Club, and he wanted to book Pop Music Fever Dream, who have played the festival the past 2 years, but they're really good friends of mine. And I was like, okay, just for that one show, we feel like if you're a label or you're a blogger and you're booking a party and you want to book someone that's already played, it's okay. Diary winds up playing the festival every year because they're on K9 Records, and Leo's throwing a K9 Records party, so they're playing that this year. That was not planned. We love Diary. Diary went to Focus Wales with me, and they're just really wonderful people. So we're not a corporation, so we don't have to have really hard and fast rules, but we definitely do try not to have repeats. Water From Your Eyes, for instance, would ask us for $5,000 if we asked them to play the festival again, and that we just don't have that. We don't have government funding.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad that Prewn played that year because it seems like things are going great. It's you could say it's a perfect world. Let's listen to Perfect World by Prewn.
People looking at me. Mama, you would be so up, quite a sight to see.
Next up, this is what, people, I guess, would know you from, right? A Place to Bury Strangers. They're like the band you are the most affiliated with, let's say. The song is Love Reaches Out. But tell me a bit about your relationship with A Place to Bury Strangers.
This is my favorite choice of these 6 songs, and I'll tell you why. It's never a good idea to mix worlds of the jobs that you have. You might even know that from doing it yourself. And in 2020, A Place to Bury Strangers, we're supposed to play the festival, and the band were having internal personal problems. On the first day of the festival, as the pandemic is happening, the bass player and drummer the bass player had been in the band since 2010, and the drummer had only been in the band for a year or two, but they both quit the band on the first night of the festival. The funniest thing was nobody really heard that they quit the band because the pandemic started. And so we were going to have that show anyway. They were like, we'll make that our last show. And that was just going to be really hard for me emotionally with running this festival, having that happen. Barry Ballroom shut down in time for that show not to happen. We rescheduled it for the next year. That didn't happen. Then we rescheduled it for 2022. And on the Sunday of the festival, Barry Ballroom had this horrible problem that I shouldn't go into details about. And then, so the show was bumped to the following Monday. And 6 days is enough. Like, I had it, and the band, I kind of pressured them into playing it. So I had to go to the show. Big snowstorm hits. I don't have my jacket. I go to the A Place to Bury Strangers show. I live on the same street as Barry Ballroom, and I wound up getting pneumonia walking home from that show and was sick for 2 weeks. So don't mix A Place to Bury Strangers with the festival ever again. Dedstrange is Oliver and my label, and so that's the way we mix it, and he did the flyer this year, and it's beautiful. Love Reaches Out is a song about the band breaking up, and how there's a line in it addressed to me about, well, that we'll always be friends. And that they wound up playing that year. So that's the song I chose. And it's more, choosing this is more of a reference to the terrible drama of 2020 and 2022, actually. Yeah. And it's just a great song.
Are they, so I probably should know this, but I don't. Are they still together, or like did they actually fully break up?
So they reformed in 2022 with Oliver's best friend from high school, John Fedowitz, and his wife, Sandra. And John and Oliver were in a legendary Skywave band, legendary shoegaze band called Skywave. I sometimes call shoegaze Skywave by mistake because they're so legendary. And yeah, so that was kind of a reunion. And John and Sandra have been in the band since 2021, I guess. And they are now more legendary as a live band than they've ever been. Their show is super theatrical. Both Sandra and John are just such amazing performers. Sandra comes out and plays stand-up drums and wails. They play on the floor. It's just become a really wonderful, wonderful live show, and they've never done better than they're doing right now.
I love to hear that they kind of got through the turbulence and emerged into like this new era. That's always such a great, inspiring success story. Let's listen to a little bit of Love Reaches Out by A Place to Bury Strangers.
Love reaches out to everyone, not as much as we'd like to, but you gotta keep the dream.
Next up, we've got Gift with Gumball Garden. Tell me a bit about this one.
So when I was working at Lola, I met this woman named Alexandra who wanted to work at Lola. And we just, sometimes you just sit down with someone and you just never stop talking to them. We just went on and on and on and on together. And she was in 3 bands. I wish I could remember what all 3 of them were called, but one was Gift. And she told me about them. I think maybe I heard... Oh, no. What happened was I went to see the Wants at Berlin right before the pandemic happened. And it was Gift's second show. Gift were opening for the Wants, who are friends of mine. And I was just blown away by Gift. I was like, wow, Alexandra, your band is amazing. I went up to the first of 3 band and thought they were Gift and embarrassed myself, telling them how great they were. And they were like, we're not in Gift. And then after the pandemic, I touched base with Alexandra. What happened to Gift? And she's like, oh, TJ recorded an album. Let me loop you in with him. And TJ sent me the album. And Spiritualizes is kind of my favorite band. and it sounded like Spiritualized, and I was like, okay, because Dedstrange up to that point had mostly signed bands that sound like The Fall or like really post-punky bands, and I was like, okay, I really want to work with this band. So we signed them to Dedstrange. We put out their first album, Momentary Presence, and the lead singer TJ and I worked so well together that I started managing the band. Now I've been managing the band for about 3 years. They signed to Captured Tracks, put out a great album called Illuminator last year. And now they are, not last year, but the year before. It still feels like 2024 was last year. And now they just sent me rough mixes on their third album, which is coming out on Captured Tracks hopefully later this year. And their performance at the Dedstrange party in 2022 was just legendary. And it was such a great lineup. It was Dead Tooth Gift, Wa Together, and Thus Love all in a row. And it was Thus Love's first sort of entry into New York. They're also on Captured Tracks, and they're one of my favorite bands. So it's just such a good memory behind this song, for sure.
Hell yeah. Let me ask you a question about, you mentioned the fact that y'all mostly focused on kind of post-punk stuff or stuff that sounded like The Fall. This was not that. After you took the plunge and went ahead and kind of got this band that didn't sound like your other bands on the label, I guess, what did you find? Did you find that it was like that it didn't really make a difference that they sounded different, or was there an adjustment like to who you could go to or what kind of shows you could book for them? Because to me, it just seems like, yes, maybe the label had an established sound, but when you bring in an act that is different, it's not necessarily harmful to the label, right? Is it just perception, kind of?
Well, I think I'm overemphasizing that they're different a little bit because Oliver pretty much chose to sign every band on the label except Gift up to that point. Because their song Gumball Garden sounds like Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which is certainly a fit for Dedstrange. And you'll hear that when you hear the song. But they have something that bands need to succeed in New York. There are 5 incredibly charismatic people who are out at shows, and they all work in music in one form or another. Callan, the bass player, owns Alphaville. Gabe books Alphaville in Berlin. Jessica works at Nightclub 101. TJ produces bands and does music for advertising and stuff. Justin was a sound person for a long time at Baby's All Right and knows everybody. And so very quickly they went from playing the Mercury Lounge to selling out Baby's All Right, to the point where if you sell out Baby's All Right, Capture Tracks is going to be pretty willing to sign you. It's a rare thing to break out of the New York City music scene to where you're drawing 300 people to your shows. Their record release party was at Bowery Ballroom. That was really great. So GIF was different, but they have their own sort of ability to be successful that kind of has that does bring up the point. What label you're on is not going to make or break your band at this point in time. It used to be a much bigger factor in pitching a band and in, exposure. We've always just used Dedstrange as a way to give back because we've enjoyed the success of A Place to Bury Strangers over the past 17 years. And we really do sign band. We've signed 13 bands now, and we had no intention of doing that. And sometimes we just get sent a record and we can't resist helping the band itself. More recently, we've only been willing to sign international bands. So we just signed Sunset Images from Mexico City, and they have 4 shows at the festival, including both label parties. Before that, we signed Goblin Daycare from Istanbul, this incredible egg punk band, and Easy Head from Manila, who kind of sound like Brian Jones Sound Massacre.
I love that y'all are like digging, like you're doing the digging and getting like you're not just waiting for it to come to you. You know what I mean? It's, right. I don't know. And you're not like trying to pluck something that's already like a finished product or something that, oh, you guys are like drawing a bunch of people already. Oh, you guys already have like viral shit. Like, let me, take you. You guys are there to nurture and create this environment. It's very cool. Let's listen to a little bit of Gumball Garden by Gift.
I walk in circles every day.
Finally, the closer, Water From Your Eyes with Adeleine. I'm sure everybody who listens to this show or watches the show, I guess, knows Water From Your Eyes. But what's your experience like with them?
I mean, we got in, I'm going to credit Leo with this one. Leo booked them for the festival in 2020. So we got in early. I'm sure they were on Exploding in Sound at that point, which is a great label to watch if you want to listen to bands before, they're playing much bigger venues. I have just such good memories of the Water From Your Eyes show at Pianos. Water From Your Eyes would have never played Pianos in 2020 if we hadn't booked them there during the festival. I don't even know if they were angry about us booking them at Pianos during the festival, but they might have been. But their set was just phenomenal. It was late at night. It was either Friday or Saturday. It must have been Thursday because we only go late on Wednesday and Thursday. It was late at night on Thursday night at the festival, and everyone in that room was like, oh my God, this band's incredible. This song, Adeleine, is beautiful. The video is animated. It's a really special video, and I'm very happy for Water From Your Eyes and for This Is Lorelei, Nate's other project. They're doing great too. And Matador signed Water From Your Eyes after that. I, to be honest, I don't think we played that much of a role in breaking Water From Your Eyes, but it's nice that we got them in, or that we got in early on them, and it's a good look for us for sure.
Yeah, they're incredible, and yeah, this is Lorelei is like some of my favorite stuff. I just think the way that he thinks about music is really interesting. Like everything he puts out, it's like it's interesting, and this goes for Water From Your Eyes as well. Everything is interesting to listen to. It's never like, all right, cool, I can anticipate what's coming. I really can't ever. Like it's so cool. Let's listen to a little bit of it. Here's Adeleine.
One quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One quick thing. I do now know that Nate had a good time at the New Colossus Festival because we did an online session with them when we were doing those in 2021 during the pandemic. And we can probably find it on YouTube. It was amazing. Just the two of them performing in their living room. And I did want to add that.
Yeah, their connection they have is really cool. It's like when two people can connect on an artistic level like that, it's very special. It doesn't happen all the time, It's a certain level of vulnerability, and it's just beautiful. Let's listen to a little bit of Adeleine by Water From Your Eyes. And there we go. That's your mixtape. A lot of incredible stuff on there. Like I said, The Heaven, I'm pumped on them. I cannot wait to listen to more of them. Were there any honorable mentions that you left off? I know you did mention Ducks Limited earlier, but any other honorable mentions that spring to mind, or are you pretty happy with this six?
No, there is one. The first year, the crowning moment of the festival, and really when I knew we were on to really something special, there's a band on Bella Union, and I always get their country name wrong, and I did it to them, and they got really mad at me. They are from... they're from Denmark, and I think I said they were from Sweden or one of the other Nordic countries, which is a huge no-no. They were trying to get into Pianos, and one of them didn't have ID, and I was like, they're from Sweden, let them in. And the lead singer went, no, we're from Denmark. Anyway, then they came to Pianos. They played one of the most beautiful sets of any band I've ever seen in my life. You can check them out. They're on Bella Union. Leo's always had a good relationship with Simon from Bella Union, who was in the Cocteau Twins. That's how we got Lowly. And if I make my top 10 performances at the New Colossus Festival, that Roost World one is up there. The Lowly one is up there. Thus Love's first year at the festival in 2022 is up there. Those are all just incredible memories. Yeah.
Hell yeah, it's amazing. Again, I urge listeners and viewers to go because it seems like you guys break a ton of acts and give people a platform. It's super cool. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to play a game, and then we'll get the hell out of here. All right, we're back with the game. And Steven, today we're playing This or That Music Festival Edition. The way this works is I give you two festivals. You pick which one stays, and then we kind of keep going through different festivals until we're out of festivals. I think we got 15 listed here. So let's start with two big ones, Bonnaroo or South by Southwest?
I'm going to have to go South by Southwest there, as I've never been to Bonnaroo, and I think of Bonnaroo as more of like a fish type festival. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way it is in my head. I've had incredible memories at South by Southwest over the years. I've seen bands that are enormous now. I saw Adele at South by Southwest on her first trip over here, and I threw parties every year at South by Southwest. And until last year, actually, when the military thing happened, a lot of rain came down on my head the day the festival ended, and I was like, okay, can't do South by Southwest parties anymore. But we had a Dedstrange party at the Black Angels bar every year, which was amazing. And I loved helping bands get shows there. And when A Place for Very Strangers went there in 2018, they played 18 shows. I made it to 16 of them.
That is insane. That is that's called what would they say? That's longevity or stamina, something like that.
Yeah, stamina.
South by Southwest or Lollapalooza?
I did make it to Lollapalooza. I was managing a band called the Hood Internet. They're still around. They're mashup kings of Chicago. And I had a really great time, but I don't remember much. And so I'm going to stick with South by Southwest here.
All right. South by Southwest or Primavera in Barcelona?
Uh-oh. Primavera is the best festival in the world. It's better than our festival even. I went there with The Place for Very Strangers in 2008, and I kid you not, I saw Shellac, Devo, De La Soul doing 3 Feet High and Rising, Public Enemy doing It Takes a Nation of Millions, Portishead, Throbbing Gristle, Holy Fuck, Caribou, Yeasayer, Deer Hunter. I could go on. That was just 1 year of that festival. That Primavera is going to have I always tell people that's my favorite festival ever, and I'm dying to go back this year. I'm hoping Prewn gets into it next year. That would be really amazing.
I hope they do too. I've never been, but I do wonder, how is it that their lineups are always so strong across the board like that? Is it just because people want to be in Barcelona? That was what I imagined.
No, I think somebody over there has some money, whether it be the Spanish government, the owner of Primavera. Maybe he's just a really great businessman and is smart enough to know to put a large portion of the ticket sales back into paying bands. That's actually my answer. That must be what's going on there, yeah.
Whatever they're doing, it's working. It seems awesome, and I would love to go sometime too. How about this, Primavera or New Orleans Jazz Festival?
Primavera, although I've heard wonderful things about New Orleans Jazz Festival. I've never been there.
Primavera or Glastonbury?
See, Glastonbury is more like Coachella, where you have you have a lot. I actually listen to mainstream pop music, so I'm not going to throw that dagger at it. But at Primavera, it's only like insane bands from your childhood that you were buying records of one after another. Whereas at Glastonbury, I'm sure there's some bands that played there last year that I wouldn't have that much interest in seeing. I think of Glastonbury more as like where Amy Winehouse would play.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if anything dethrones Primavera. It doesn't seem likely. Primavera or Pickathon?
Well, Prewn is playing Pickathon, and I did not know about Pickathon until she got confirmed there, and I'm probably going to go to Pickathon. So that question is TBD, which means Primavera's got to stay on the board.
Love it. Pickathon is pretty incredible. Primavera or Coachella?
I did go to Coachella, again, 2008. That was sort of when A Place for Very Strangers had their big rise. I saw Paul McCartney, Leonard Cohen, the Yeah-Yeahs, TV on the radio, took mushrooms with the Chemical Brothers that night, which is insane. Marcy, again, all of these bands from my childhood. I'm going to go with Primavera because of the just higher percentage of amazing stuff.
Okay, we got a few more left. Primavera or Newport Folk Festival?
Well, my favorite musical artist is probably Joni Mitchell, and she did perform there last year with the help of 15 other people on stage. But I'm still going to have to go with Primavera. I do prefer, as a genre, like Devo or Shellac over folk music. That's just is what it is.
It makes sense. Yeah. Primavera or EDC in Vegas?
I think I've aged out of going to rave festivals. I bet that they're the most fun thing ever. It was actually in the rave tent at Coachella where me and A Place for Strangers were hanging out with Chemical Brothers, and that was a really fun place to be for sure.
So I assume Primavera takes it. Primavera
takes it.
Primavera or Splendor in the Grass?
Splendor in the Grass I've heard of a couple times. I don't know it very well. Somebody I work with played there.
I had to give some Australia representation in here because I felt bad.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Primavera. I'm hopefully going to Australia next year, so maybe I'll wind up at that festival. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully you can check it out. Primavera or Austin City Limits?
I love Austin City Limits, actually. And when I worked with Michael Lang, we did a show with Heineken called Amsterdam. And so I had passes to ACL every year and passes to the Heineken tent, which kept me well beered up during ACL. And I saw Oasis, Arcade Fire, the Doves, and God, I'm not going to remember the fourth band on that bill. It was insane. All in a row. It was 110 degrees out. Nobody cared. I saw Van Morrison there, and I'm an enormous Van Morrison fan. But I'm still going to go with Primavera. One of the things about Primavera is it runs all night, basically. It stops at like 6 or 7 in the morning, and then everyone sleeps until 1 or 2 and goes right back at it. In Spain, they really know how to live, you know?
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I love the Spanish. I like eating dinner late. That's my thing that I like.
Me too.
Also, quick aside, throughout this interview, I've been so impressed at how you can recall like all these bands, all these artists, all these labels. Like the other day, I was talking about Wilco, and I was like, Jeff Tweedy. His name's Jeff, right? Like, so I cannot do this shit as well as you can. You're a genius. So where were we? We were at Primavera versus Treefort Music Fest in Boise, Idaho. I had to throw that one in there.
Treefort has just been in my face a lot lately with great bookings. I really need to go. Until I go, I can't vote for Treefort, but I love the lineups. And A Place Story Strangers played there recently, and Gift played there recently. And my experiences with the festival as a manager were both really excellent. So I know that their staff is awesome. I should try to go.
Cool. Having said that, Primavera, right? Primavera or Govball, and then we have one more after this.
Not a Govball fan. It started when my friends Caveman were booked at Gumball at noon, put out a new album, and Pitchfork wrote, Caveman is the type of band that plays Gumball at noon. And I just was like, fuck Gumball. I don't know. It made me hate Gumball. Those guys are my buddies. And of course that wasn't Gumball's fault. But yeah, I have no experience with Gumball. I've never been.
I'm with you. I'm not the biggest fan. The last one, can Primavera dethrone it? Primavera or Woodstock?
You're asking the wrong person that question. I worked for Michael Lang for 15 years, and I have to answer Woodstock. I am just a very big fan of Woodstock. I saw the movie with Michael Lang and his two partners that put on the festival at the 20th anniversary re-release at the Hard Rock Cafe in Times Square, sitting with the three of them. Nothing's gonna beat Woodstock. Not Primavera, no, for sure.
Of course not. I added that one kind of just now at the last second because I
was cheating.
Yeah, I knew you had a little thing going on there. Okay. Thank you, Stephen, for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on. Why don't you take some time to plug anything you want to plug, where people can find you, where they can find more info about New Colossus, anything you want to plug.
Yeah, I will be at the Dedstrange party Wednesday night at Berlin. That is going from 7 p.m. until 1:30 a.m. I will be at the Dedstrange party at Pianos, both floors, all day long from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then I'll just be running around making sure everything goes okay. I'll be at Arlene's Grocery all day on Sunday for our closing party there. But the closing party at Pianos is fantastic too, and they're right next to each other. There's also one at Baker Falls, so I'll be running between those three venues. We only added nighttime programming on Sundays last year. We tried it out. It was amazing. Bands are still in town, and it's a great way to catch all the bands that you missed that you really wanted to see. Most of them are playing on Sunday.
Amazing. And then again, New Colossus is from March 3rd to March 8th. So those are the dates. Set those aside, show up, go see some shows. And we'll put links to the Instagram and stuff like that in the about, so go check those out. Listeners and viewers, look, we always do these cassette tapes, right? Every 3 months we send out a new tape. It's like a little compilation tape. We have artists who send their songs in, and we pick maybe 10, anywhere from 9 to 12 songs that go on each tape. We send them out to our paid subscribers. If you want to be a subscriber, you can go check that out at tapeclub.substack.com. And you also get, this show, you get the mixtape from this show, and you'll get my radio show every week. So it's a pretty cool thing. $5 a month. Not a bad deal. Stephen, thank you so much for jumping on and doing this. I really do appreciate you taking the time. Shout out to Olivia Stonier, our associate producer, and listeners and viewers. Thank you for listening and viewing. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Thanks so much.
J-Card Podcast is a fully independent production. It is made possible by listeners and viewers just like you. So if you want to support us, tapeclub.substack.com is the place to go.